Morning, everyone. Welcome to the July 9th, 2019 meeting of Henderson County Fiscal Court. We are glad you're with us. We're going to begin, as we always do, with an invocation. Our Property Valuation Administrator, Andrew Powell, is going to lead us in prayer. Please stand.
Pray with me. Father God, thank you for the opportunity to gather in the People's Building, Lord, just to do the work for our community. God, I thank you for the people I stand in front of. I thank you for their hearts to serve this community and to also serve you. God, we ask for your guidance and peace in those decisions, and we just pray for discernment in helping our fellow man. God, we ask that everything we do bring honor and glory to you, and we ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. You're welcome to join us for fiscal court meetings whenever you are. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Master Southard.
Here.
Master Moran.
Here.
Master Putman.
Here.
Master Berry.
Here.
Master McCollum.
Here.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have in front of you the June 25th minutes of our fiscal court meeting that day. After a period of review, I will entertain a motion to accept those.
I move that we accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions, clarifications, or additions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We have with us today leadership of Henderson Habitat for Humanity, which, as you know, we included support for in our 2019-20 budget. And please come forward. We're going to hear a little bit of presentation about the program, and eager to hear the plans for next year. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Good morning. My name is Brittany Smith. I'm the Executive Director at Habitat for Humanity. This is Matt Reynolds. He is our Operations Manager. We are both natives of Henderson as well. So we just wanted to say thank you for supporting Habitat. Matt's going to give you some overview of some programs that Habitat offers in town. I'm going to give you a little bit of overview of our financials at the moment. But we do not want to be remiss in believing that everyone understands exactly how Habitat works. So I do want to tell you before I get started that Habitat is not a hand out. It is a hand up in Henderson County and every other county in Kentucky that it serves. Our homeowners do pay a monthly mortgage, which includes principal, taxes, and insurance. And Habitat is the builder for those families. We're also, we call it the Bank of Habitat. We are the mortgage lender along with their bank for the entire life of their mortgage. And sometimes we like to run what we call the Goodwill of Habitat, the Restore as well, which Matt's going to speak more about. But our homeowners, all of them put in sweat equity into those homes, and they love their homes very dearly. Habitat here was started in 1991. It was actually started by the ministerial committee in town to combat the housing issues that faced and do face Henderson as of today. As I said, homes are not free. An average three-bedroom home with us, the mortgage on that would be about $378 a month. That is on I believe your papers say a 30-year fixed mortgage. That would actually be on about a 20-year fixed mortgage. And the reason that we're able to help homeowners is we do a 0% interest, which most banks could and would not willing to do. We have built or rehabbed 61 safe and affordable homes in Henderson over the past 26 years. We are building at 215 Letcher Street across from the Splash Park. We're very excited about that. That is a partnership between us and the City of Henderson directly and the Codes Department. They donated some of that land that was there over to us so we could add a home ownership there. We're also building in the county at 55 Paragon Drive. The taxable lot values before we built those first 61 homes totaled $259,800. After those first 61 homes were completed, the taxable value that is on the PVA's site for the county of Henderson, that would be $3,080,647. So a good economic investment inside of Henderson from those first 61 homes, and we're 4 homes above that now. Since inception, our homeowners have paid $300,000 in county taxes and $150,000 in city taxes, and we pay that on their behalf through their escrow each year. Our homeowners work for Cytex, the City of Henderson, Walmart, Vectren, Tyson, Audubon Metals, Lowe's, Methodist Hospital, and Henderson School Corporation, just to name a few. A little bit of our family breakdown. We have 10 homeowners who are disabled. Single mothers or single parent households is 14. Families with multiple children would be 2 or more. There's 14. And 25 of our homeowners are employed full-time here right in Henderson County. So what we like to say is our homeowners eat here, they sleep here, and they shop here. They love Henderson as much as we do, and like I said, we really, really appreciate you guys letting us come and speak with you. And I'm going to turn over to Matt to tell you about a few of the programs that we offer in town as well.
Thank you, Brittany. All right, now I'm going to kind of turn to this. This is something that we had just recently created this past year. We just started our new fiscal year July 1st, and again, we do appreciate the partnership with the county. That's a huge impact to our annual budget. The first page is something that we came up with to kind of this one here to kind of show donors and people of interest about what the cost of a Habitat home actually is. A lot of our subcontractors, who are all local, give us a substantial break on cost to different variables of the home, and also with the I'm sure most of you are familiar with our Thursday crew, our gentlemen that are retired that help build the homes. Basically, when we went to a contractor recently who was a friend of Habitat, who said that they would help us build a house basically and take very little, almost nothing. The difference between that contractor making almost nothing on the project to build a 3-bedroom, 1,218 square foot home was about $120,000, and that was him making very little, not even 10%. Our guys can build that same home for about $75,000. So it's about $45,000 difference for the same house from a gentleman who's not making anything. Hardly. I mean, it's crazy. So we got these things broken down because a lot of donors were kind of hesitant to give because they're like, well, we can't give $80,000. You know, we can't do it. So if we can't build a whole house, we don't feel like we can give. And we said that's not true. And Brad, you remember when we come talk to you, we didn't really have a dollar amount in mind of what would help us. Any dollars help us, as you can see by looking at the breakdown of the house. Any bit that someone gives, whether they buy it in a restore, they give it to us in a check, whatever, goes to building these homes. So that's pretty interesting there. The next thing is probably not much of interest to anybody unless you have a business and you want to call Shadley. We have a truck, and we're going to be putting businesses' signs on the side of the truck as advertisement. We have several businesses already signed up for it, kind of just our way of saying thank you. Cost is very little, and our truck services about 5 counties, and we do about 20 to 30 pickups a week, so the truck's always moving. Next page is kind of our breakdown of the race. I'm sure you all are familiar with the 5K. We have that every April during the Tri-Fest, and these sponsorships usually fill up pretty fast. As a matter of fact, I think Shadley's already told me that she's already got the diamond sponsor already taken care of. And I think the Habitat Trot sponsor. A lot of these fill up very quickly. So, but they're a great way to get involved. And Shadley makes sure that anybody that donates that doesn't mind. Sometimes people want anonymity, but sometimes people don't mind. And she'll advertise on our Facebook for them and signs in the yards of the builds and different things. And we have a TV on our restore where shoppers can see, you know, who's helped out with Habitat and different things. So that's always there. Our voucher program was something that we started back in January of 18. Yeah, January of 18. It basically was something where we got with some, as you can see, the community partners that we have here, Christian Outreach and some others. They came to us and said that they had needs. They had families that needed beds. They had families that needed appliances, families that needed just anything. And we knew there was a need, but we didn't know. Brittany wrote a grant to the our Community Foundation of Western Kentucky and was able to secure $6,800 to start it. We went through that $6,800 very quickly, and we delivered some of the beds ourselves, Brittany and I, and some of the houses we went into. It was quite a sight to see children sleeping on the floor as old as 11, 12 years old, never had a bed. The same story I tell every time was a Hispanic family here in town that we got help from. Who was it that helped us? The woman that we went through to help them. Well, anyways, Erna Hargis, yes. The family, the father, he was crying, thanking us. His 5 children had never had a bed, but our voucher program this past year, we ran $28,700 through it and serviced these partner families. They do the screening. They send them to us. When they come in, they have a voucher with what their needs are. We basically walk out through the restore and find that item for them, and sometimes we have to discount it to make it work. But we have found that a lot of the donors love this program because it does a couple things. One, they give to the voucher program, and that's money. Then after it helps a family, it also becomes general operating funds to go into the homes. So it's like I tell somebody, would you rather give to the voucher program and help a family and then go to the home, or would you rather just write a check to go to the house? I mean, either way, we'll take it. I'm not saying that, but it's a kind of a twofold process there with the voucher program. And then, oh yes, the community service, as you see at the bottom of the page, this was something that donors really like to see. The part where the folks have to actually do just a little bit of something for it. They have to take a Bank on Henderson class. They can volunteer 2 hours at our agency or the agencies that's sending them. The little caveat there, the Complete the Father Bradley Women and Children's Shelter, that's only for people that are in that program. They're obviously not just going to go do it. Or they can donate $10 to help perpetuate another voucher. We've probably created about 7 vouchers with that $10, created 7 extra vouchers to help 7 extra families by those $10 donations. So that's pretty interesting. Next page, I'm sure if y'all don't know Fred Lawver, I'm sure that y'all probably will if y'all ever come to Habitat. He's one of our longest standing volunteers, and he is the gentleman that helps make the barns, the yard barns that go on the houses, and also they sell those yard barns. As a matter of fact, he's already sold 2 this year, and it's only the second week of the year. So he comes in and tells me how much money he's making Habitat. So he's doing a very good job. But and then the last page is just kind of to show someone if they wanted to donate X amount of dollars, how we would divvy it up across the spectrum. Kind of give you the biggest bang for your buck, where if you gave one time $2,000, $3,000, whatever, we'll split it up between voucher program, race, everything. That way you get, exposure in everything that we do. So that's kind of Habitat, and of course the Restore. I know Kurt, Mr. Wilson here. He comes in the Restore a lot, and I've seen Butch. I've seen a lot of y'all, and Beth. She's on our Restore committee. So we have a lot of people here in the room that are great friends of Habitat, and we do really appreciate this partnership. And Brittany, I think she's got one more thing. Go ahead.
We are getting ready to do a community build, probably at 215 Letcher Street. So I do want to throw out a little challenge to you guys. Sam Lingerfelt's our board president, of course works for the city. He and Buzzy are trying to put together a team of people to work on that house. I think the county might be able to find more people to work on the house than the city. So I'm going to throw out a little challenge. We only have 30 spots total, and that build will be in September. So I'll send Brad some more information on that, and I'll get it to Beth as well. And if you guys want to get some people signed up, the 30 spots are first come, first serve. So if you want to try to beat Sam and get some more people, that would give you guys some big bragging rights, especially with our board president. So you can tell him that I said that, Donna, when you see Sam later on. Tell him it's a
September,
challenge.
that's not quite harvest season, is it, Tim?
It's close.
Well, Tim Southard's going to volunteer. Everybody else is retired, I think. Yeah, so I think they're already smiling.
Y'all have any questions for us? Or?
How's the Restore doing?
Well, the Restore actually just had its best year ever. We, of course, as everybody knows, it's been coming to the Restore for quite some time, since it's been on Clutie Park to Green Street to Carlisle to hopefully where we're staying. I don't want to move again, but we had our best year. We actually did just over $500,000 in sales this past fiscal year, which was incredible because the year before we only did $239,000, and the board was like, "Man, we're ecstatic with that." And we didn't know how much we could do, but we knew it needed a little tweaking. We buy a little bit of merchandise. Of course, we have to adhere to IRS regulations about UBIT laws, but we do buy a little stuff, and it's kind of nicer, bigger. People have given us a lot of compliments on the Restore, so we appreciate you asking about that.
And the tools situation, are you restocked with what you need?
We're flush on tools. We had a lot of patrons from the community. I mean, like I said, I will tell you that sometimes we know that we have a lot of friends, but during those times we really found out who our friends were. I mean, within moments of that first time that they got stolen, we had numerous people coming with tools, with money, with everything. Second time, same thing. However, we went ahead and told them, we want to take responsibility for this. So if you're going to donate any money, it's not going to be for tools. It's going to be towards our new surveillance equipment. We have cameras. We have motion lights, detectors. I mean, we've done everything. We put more stuff on the trailer as far as alarm system goes. We haven't had anything since except for the truck when they stripped our Restore truck down. That was weird. But I think there was a special DEF system on that diesel truck that somebody must have needed, because we paid $20,000 for the truck, and the estimate to fix it was $23,000. So for 5 minutes with a sawzall, $23,000 worth of damage. It's pretty good. But no, we have cameras now. As a matter of fact, we also have a local agency that is a security agency that does free drive-bys for us, and has called. My phone's rang at 2 o'clock in the morning and said, hey, I found an unlocked door. So we know they're looking, and like I said, it's just been a blessing. This has just been a fantastic year for us. So.
Good deal.
Yes, sir.
Back in the 90s, we got a house on Fifth Street that came back to us, I think, because they weren't able to make the payments or didn't make it. And we started the Bank on Henderson program. Since then, have we had any houses come back or default?
We have had, on default, we've only had one. We've had a few deed in lieu's, not many. I'd say the one you're talking about and another are the only two defaults in our history, and then we've had, I think, 3 deed in lieu foreclosures, and that's it. Go ahead.
Explain our last default, if you want.
Oh, yeah. The last one was, it was an issue where the homeowner had passed away, didn't have a will. The surviving folks that were entitled to it both were in separate prisons. It was an interesting scenario. However, our legal team collaborated with another legal team, and we got that taken care of, and actually that one's good. But no, with the new family selection process, we have an NMLS committee who goes over various degrees of credit worthiness and stuff. The family selection committee has been revamped. It's going to take a catastrophic event. We're educating these folks. We've created new classes from everything from how to mow your grass to how to take care of your appliances. Because when I told Brittany, it's funny, there was homeowners that would pay. I'm not going to mention any names, but they would send in their payment. 15 years in the program, and still in the memo section of the check says rent. So that's an education thing, right? We didn't educate properly as a company, and now we are. And we've noticed huge changes in regards to what you asked there. So,
Any other questions?
We have begun pairing with the UK Extension Office quite a bit on most of those classes. So those classes are free to us. We do want to thank Andy Rideout. He came and sat in my office when he started here. And I was like, oh my gosh, another meeting with somebody I didn't schedule with. And he's like, I want to give you free classes. I'm like, no one ever stops by and says that. So we pair with Andy, and he actually just got with us on some more classes that the UK Extension Office is doing. We want our homeowners to use that as a resource, especially because they have so many free classes that can help our homeowners. One class we are looking to offer, if you guys know of any lawyers in town who are willing to be doing, I'm looking at this side of the room a little bit more, and back there. We do want to offer a will class, because like Matt mentioned, that's one of the number one things our homeowners need to get in place. A lot of them have young children. They need to get a will in place if possible. So if any of you guys have any ideas on that, that's one class we've been trying to offer for a couple of years now.
Deal.
I want to thank both of you. You are such committed, hardworking people.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate you.
well, no, we thank you all again. And like I say, the generous allotment allocation is going to go a long way. So we very much appreciate it.
We're proud of the work you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a promotion at the road department. and also the correction of an oversight at the road department. If Mr. Hubiak wouldn't mind coming up and detailing these real quick. The forms are in your packet. So, Mr. Underdown,
Yes.
Justin,
Was
he
it-
is being promoted, right?
Was a truck driver and is promoted to the cat truck mow trim operator. We do it by selection of process. People sign up for the job, and then we put them out with the current operator and make sure that they can do the job and who is the most qualified one to operate the piece of equipment. It's not for everybody. We had 3 people sign up for it, and Mr. Underdown was the successful candidate on that.
And that Motrim operator position was one you had, and he's merely
Right.
bumping up into that vacancy,
correct.
right? Okay. And Mr. Jewell, can you talk a little bit about this?
Mr. Jewell is our lead grade all operator. He is also now became our fill-in foreman when myself and Mr. Risley are not on site.
And we did not have this in the original listing, at least his pay scale, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
But we have the money in the budget because of the elimination of a lead truck driver position. One of our people will be retiring in October, and so the offset of the person that's leaving at that time and the increase on this one negates the amount of additional money.
Are you going to replace that truck driver?
Yes, but it will not be at
Yeah.
that rate.
That's right.
That's correct. It was a position that was created some years ago that we no longer need.
So I asked Bill to bring this before fiscal court for votes to make sure everybody's good.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions?
Are we bringing the truck driver in now to train, so when he's gone?
We have now a position open that we will advertise and we will do interview. We do train people within house if we have a truck driver. However, right now we require everybody that's hired by the road department to have a CDL. Just because right now we just don't have the time to train the people. We have so much work going on.
Okay.
Any other questions?
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor of accepting these 2 adjustments to the road department staff signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next on your agenda is a discussion about the prospect of placing 911 fees on water bills. And I wanted to preface this with some important points about this prospect. This is something that's been talked about for several years now as the 911 revenue program has gone through changes. And before we begin just talking about it, I'd like to kick it off with some observations. When the powers that be added the $2.50 a month fee on landline telephones years ago, it was meant to be a way to share the cost of having an effective 911 service among county government and as many city and county residents as possible. The thought back then was that 99% of households had a landline, seemingly, so placing a fee on that utility would assure that 99% of households contributed. Well, what no one back then could foresee is that the popularity of cell phone would prompt many households to drop their landlines, denying our dispatch center those revenues and putting an unfair burden on houses that kept their landlines to fund 911. Older folks, especially elderly homeowners, are typically the last to drop their landlines, so the 911 fees are now being paid mostly by people age 60 and over, probably, and I don't think that's fair. To solve that fairness issue, both city and county have considered moving the fee from one declining utility, telephone lines, to another that is utilized by 99% of county residents, and that is water. By doing this, we are returning the 911 support program to what it was meant to be in the first place, something shared equitably by the people of our community. The plan, for which the city has already had first reading, is to take the fees entirely off landlines and place them on water bills. This will create the appropriate amount of revenue, and the county will also continue to support 911 as well out of our general fund. Last year, for example, we sent $209,000 over to the city for 911. As with all government agencies, the costs for 911 are going to rise steadily over the next several years in response to pension and health insurance increases, even as funding for dispatch decreases due to the severing of landlines. The amount county government has had to pay out of its general fund in the last 6 years has increased 158%. That's what makes returning the 911 revenue plan to its original design, which is equitably shared, is so important. I think everyone understands the importance of our dispatch center. At any given moment, a person might rely on our 911 center to save their lives or the lives of loved ones, friends, or even strangers. I'd venture to say everyone who lives in Henderson County has been touched by the work of our dispatch center in some way. It is not really an option to not have one or to be satisfied with understaffing it or under-equipping it, simply because a lot of folks didn't want their landline telephones. I'm pretty sure many of them ended their service not knowing what that move would do to supporting 911, and given the chance, they'd probably want a way they could contribute again. If we all agree this step needs to be taken to assure the long-term viability of 911, then our next question is the fee rate we'd like to put on water bills. Again, the current fee is $2.50 a month, as it has been for some time. The City-County Cooperative Group voted to recommend to the City Commission and Fiscal Court bumping that fee to $4, which the city is doing. It is my opinion that the county does not have to increase that fee. In your package, you'll see a financial projection done by City Finance Director Robert Gunter, which shows we can comfortably handle our portion of 911 funding with a combination of money from our general fund and the same $2.50 fee on county water bills. Because we will return to reaching almost all county residents, the revenue from fees will return to where it once was. As expenses at 911 grow over the next 5 years, our revenue from water bills will stay pretty much the same, and the county will have to increase its contribution incrementally, but we'll still be able to pay the county government's portion without busting our budget. I would argue then that not raising the fee is the way to go, keeping it at $2.50 as it has been for years, and move ahead with taking it off landlines and putting it on water bills. Like the city, we would make that change effective January 1. The Henderson County Water District Board voted to accept our plan to move fees to water bills. They asked for the right to collect an administrative fee for their extra work up to 3% of what they collect. I think that's more than fair. Pete Conrad from the Water District is here today, and I'd ask him to come up to the podium to further explain his board's thoughts on this, and then we can go into general discussion. So, Pete, if you don't mind, I'll help direct you. You're giving me a look like you got deer in the headlights a little bit. But.
Well, sorry about that, Judge. I don't know if the board voted to agree to that just yet.
So when do you know when they plan to?
I mean, part of it was they had discussed that they were more than happy to go forward with moving forward, trying to figure it all out. Okay. Because obviously the city's going forward with it, but the city, Henderson Water Utility, is wholly, an operation of the city as a municipality, and they run underneath a whole slew of different rules and regulations, and they also have different kind of customers, than we do. So that was part of it, and I know Steve and I, we've worked with it, and I've talked with Buzzy because we're trying to figure out how to make it work on our end.
And Judge, I did attend that last board meeting that they had, and there was general agreement to move forward. However, there is no necessity for a vote from that board to move forward. It is solely a determination by the fiscal court whether or not these bills go on the water bills. It's frankly not necessarily up to the board.
And even though that's true, we did want general
Yes.
consensus from all involved that this was a way to go. And do you know in your own mind, what the next steps are for your board? Are they planning on taking a vote?
I mean, they would take a vote because it's something that we could, and I'm going to disagree with Steve, sorry, a little bit, because it's something that we could fight if we wanted to.
No water utility in Kentucky's been successful at that.
And they haven't been.
So,
well, and that's what I'm saying. I
agree
mean,
to disagree.
it hasn't been successful, but I mean, the part of it is the one that's gone forward, which is the one that everyone's using, is Guerin County, and it's because Guerin County water, basically said after 8 years, look, we're done fighting with it. Let's go figure it out, kind of thing.
And several appellate court decisions.
And they've just had a couple of those just come through. So
Well, and certainly we don't want to get bogged down in any kind of fight like that. And I think,
and I think that's the best thing to do, honestly. I mean, because it's there's still some questions from the board, I think.
And I think our role is to among us agree what we'd like to do, and then bring it.
And I know that was the biggest part of one of the biggest ones, Steve. I mean, unless I misunderstood it or seen it different than you did, one of the biggest questions they had was, what is the fee going to be at our last meeting? Yeah. Is kind of one of the bigger ones that I caught from my board members. I mean, they had a couple other questions, but that was one of the bigger ones. Is, well, what are we looking at? Because with our current bills, with tax and minimum bill, which everyone gets a minimum bill, is $20.87 with tax. At $4, that's a 25% increase on the bills right off the bat without anything.
If we choose to do that.
If you were going to go to that rate, and that's where some of the conversations and things were. Well, is $250 easier to deal with, kind of thing. Because I mean, we're always out there trying to make sure that our water bills are as cheap as we can make them, kind of thing. So, and we were also trying to figure out if the 3%. If that was going to be an appropriate amount to cover what our admin costs and stuff like that are. And I've been trying to figure that out, to be honest with you, because there's still questions of how much work is this going to be on my staff and things like that, right. To be able to go through this.
So with some of those questions still to consider, I think it still would behoove us to come up with an agreement on what we'd like to do, and then work with you to make that happen, you and your board, obviously. So thank you. I might pop back up here if there are more questions.
No, absolutely.
But, with that, I'd like to turn it over to Butch Putman and Beth Moran, who sit on the City County Cooperative Group and were part of the initial discussion and the vote to recommend $4. But if there was anything more that you wanted to bring the fiscal court to consider, I'd appreciate it.
Well, Judge, thank you, Judge. I think in that initial meeting, I think we was in agreement with the $4 at that particular time. Based on some unknowns. It seemed like the thing to do, the cost of the 911 escalating, knowing it wasn't going to get any cheaper. So we'll kind of take the $4 and go $4 for the next 5 years. But after we look at the numbers we got today, that I'm looking at, with the $250, leaving $250 on the water bill, and not going to $4, our contribution drops.
Out of the general fund.
Out of the general fund. So without putting any more burden on the community, it seems like the $250 works for the county. Again, I initially it just sounded like the thing to do. But after looking at this, I don't see why you can't leave it at $250, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think so too.
Beth, anything to add?
No, I agree. I think the $250, I think that would be overwhelming to do for.
And if you look at the very bottom of that financial projection, it shows how the costs would change as the $250 comes into full implementation. It would be, if we were to agree to start this January 1 along with the water board, you can see that there would be partial revenues for the 6 months, the last 6 months of the fiscal year, and then it becomes a full fiscal year revenue item in 2021. And our contribution out of the general fund drops as we have more folks contributing in. So it is a savings for our general fund. You can see over the 5 years, starting with 2021, it will increase slowly but surely as costs increase. But under this scenario, the amount that would be paid by water customers would not change. Our costs would go up some, but this would keep that $2.50 level for the foreseeable future.
And it would come off the phone bill. So that
completely off the phone bills.
You know, Judge, and the number, I think we're talking about 6,000 people contributing now. What we didn't know, and I still don't know today, is how many landline what the number of landlines was that contributed to that.
And that's because AT&T doesn't keep track
So
of that.
yeah.
So I would venture to say it's a lot less than 6,100
Yeah, I
that
would
are
too.
on the water district's grid right now. So my intent today is not to have a vote or reach a vote, just to discuss this amongst ourselves in public.
But again,
So-
Judge, again, it was just a recommendation that come out. That's all we can
Right.
do out of that co-op.
Right. The
And,
City County Cooperative Group is designed
you know, then
to
after
make recommendations.
further review, it looks like the 250 works.
The city is taking $4, as I mentioned. That's their choice. We can do what we decide is best for county. So we do have that option.
Yeah, we got to cover the 25%.
That's our basic requirement is
Yeah.
due to an interlocal agreement, we cover 25% of the loss for the 911 center. And cell phones are assessed a small fee for 911 operations, but that is collected by the state and remitted to cover 911, help cover the 911 costs, but it's a smaller amount than we could recoup with the original design of this 911 plan for local residents. So, and I'm not sure exactly how much the state keeps for their operations from the 911 fee they collect off cell phones. I think it's 75 cents, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that sounds right.
Yeah. So any other thoughts? I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Okay, well, here I go. We have left that 250 on there forever. It's been a long, long time. It has decreased, and we keep subsidizing it with our general fund. And what we're going to do now is we're going to subsidize the people in the county. The majority of us live in the city, and we're going to subsidize the county with this money coming out of our general fund, because the people that are not going to be that are going to pay the $2.50 are the people on the Henderson County water zone. So I don't like keep subsidizing stuff out of the general fund. I've talked to you about the waste, the $200,000 going to the landfill that we're subsidizing. I don't like this either. I think we ought to go ahead and make it the $4, make it the same as the city, and go forward with it.
I don't even think the $4 would keep us from having
It'll be
subsidized.
$35,000 short.
Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts? I think being sensitive to tax increases or the appearance that this is a tax increase is important to me. I think considering what folks have always paid and keeping it at that level appeals to me. I understand what Magistrate McCollum is saying. Again, it won't completely relieve us of subsidizing it. If at some point in the future, if we went ahead and agreed on $2.50, and at some point in the future we decided that increasing that fee was what we needed to do, we could always do that. It's certainly an option.
I'd say if we're going to do that, I think we ought to do it now too.
I don't want to cut
if
the
you're gonna
dog's
do the
tail off a little
$4
at a time.
rather than waiting until the future.
But, what is appropriate, I'm not sure.
I don't know. We'll have
The
to discuss.
$2.50 is at least a marker because it is what they pay now.
So is the city subsidizing any at their $4 rate?
Yes, they are. I think you'll see just above in the blue box,
Oh, there it is. Okay.
they're going to be subsidizing,
$522,000.
and is that the average? Because it goes from $475,485 in 2021 up to $571,000 and change at 2025. So they are helping subsidize. And one thing I'm sure the argument would be, we already receive, a significant amount of tax revenues from county residents in various ways, and using that part of that money to help pay for 911 is probably appropriate on our part. It's the way it's been for a while, and putting the entire burden or almost the entire burden on people who are already paying other taxes into the county might be seen as not quite fair, but I understand your point.
I feel that since the city's subsidizing too, and their increase to $4, it's not necessary for us to increase to $4, and I feel like we should subsidize some part of it because that's what our tax dollars are supposed to go for, the safety of our community. And 911 service is the safety of our community.
And, you know, to be fair, there are there are safety programs we have that we subsidize.
Right.
The Sheriff's Department, good example. We subsidize the Sheriff's Department out of the general fund, even though, and that's all done with tax money, you know, comes into us. So there is a precedent there for subsidizing safety. So, any other thoughts, Mr. Berry? Any thoughts about this?
Well, yeah, sort of. I feel like, you know, we tend to raise, you know, I just don't think we should raise, or I don't think we should go to $4 if $2.50 will suffice. I mean, obviously nobody likes to pay extra money. I think they would understand the $2.50 much better than raising it. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just, you raise, that's easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would tend to say $2.50 is good.
If that's the argument, why don't we just do away with it and charge no fee? It's only going to be $350,000, and we got money in our general fund. Let's just pay it out of that, and there won't be any taxes.
Well, as you know, we're going to have other expenses to account for, as you have pointed out time and again in the last few months.
But we're arguing that we don't want to do this because of the money. We've got the money. I just don't think the argument washes, but that's all right.
And I think, if, you know, for example, this past fiscal year that just ended, we sent, as I said, $209,000. Under this scenario that's in front of you, that would drop to $203,000 in 2020, and then precipitously to $135,000 and change starting in 2021. So there is savings to the county general fund. It does share equitably, I think, the cost, including the county's, you know, fair share, in my thoughts. But again, that's just my opinion. And again, understanding what Mr. Magistrate McCollum is getting at. Anybody else have any things we want to discuss? I mean, if it seems acceptable to you, we can draft a resolution for either the next fiscal court meeting or the one thereafter to make a decision, and then again work with the Water District Board to see how we can come to an agreement with them and then smoothly implement it. I would like to, if we can, avoid some sort of top-down demand of the Water District. So whatever we can do to make it a cooperative decision, we'd certainly like to do. And we have time, obviously, if we want to make this effective January 1. So,
and Judge, to that point, I know you've attended one of the water board meetings, and I attended the last one with Buzzy Newman with the city was also there. And we do currently have a draft of the ordinance. It would have to be by ordinance rather than a resolution. And we took the suggestions, even though we're starting with the Garrett County ordinance, which is the one that has been approved by appellate courts in Kentucky. We've got we started with that, as did the city-county cooperative group. And I believe the city's ordinance is very much the same as well. And we took those suggestions that were received at the water board meeting, and I've continued to work with Chris Hopgood, who is the attorney for the water board, with regard to the specific draft in order to make it the most workable for Henderson County. So at any such time as the fiscal court does want to entertain that ordinance, we do have a draft to work from.
any other thoughts on that, Mr. Conrad? Do you know when your next board meeting is?
You had to ask me that.
Just a guess.
It's the fourth Wednesday. I know that. I want to say it's like the 26th.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure that's wrong. Kurt's looking at a calendar. He can tell me.
And if you think it would be appropriate,
My Kurt's still at the office, so it's the 24th. Yeah.
If you'd like us again to come back and
I mean, if the fiscal court's of the mindset that you guys want to move forward, that it probably would be helpful. I'm going to probably try sitting in tonight with the city commission, just to kind of be a fly on the wall here if there's any other discussion with that one. Obviously, I missed the first one,
And Pete, I believe you and Mr. Hopgood had indicated something about the timing. You have some other change that is coming up soon that you have to send up to the Public Service Commission.
Yeah, we've got some other things that we're sending up.
That this would be
it would
good
work
to put
well
in
to go
with
put
that
in
at the
with
same
that.
time. What's your timeline on that?
I'm not positive. We are in the middle of getting a loan through RD, Rural Development. So, and I know that at the last meeting we had just been told that that was awarded through one of the last appropriations through the federal government. Part of it is we can't move forward until we have that official letter. And it's been 2 weeks now, and we're still waiting on the official letter. So, I mean, that's where the timeline starts, where that clock starts hitting. But, I mean, if they go separate, they go separate kind of thing. It won't be that big of a deal. It shouldn't be anything. Like you said, I mean, it's been going through the appellates and whatnot. I know there's another case going right now, I think, with all this stuff. So I don't know if that would necessarily break it up or change it. But, I mean, it does. I haven't had to take something like this in front of them, but we're probably talking, 30 to 90 days is what they should. As long as both parties are in agreement, there's no real kind of, we're not contesting anything, and we go to them with a packet that says, hey, the fiscal court's saying that we want to do this, and the water district is in agreement that this is a good idea. It should move pretty smoothly, as far as I understand it, from the conversations I've had with them.
To the fiscal court, from a timeline perspective, the AT&T has to be given a minimum of 90 days notice, is my understanding. And the idea of the city-county cooperative group was initially to have these ordinances passed by July in order to give them double that amount of time for effectiveness. So that's one of the reasons I believe the city has gone ahead with at least initial passage of their ordinance. So as we get closer and closer to that 90 days, that's just something to be aware of from a timeline perspective.
Judge or Pete, either one, when we look at we paid $209 this year was our cost. We're looking at $203, which is a reduction. Is that taking in the administrative fees for you guys processing?
Actually, it does not. It does not. Yeah. These don't include the 3%, but the 3% is, I think, on the order under this scenario of $9,000, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be looking at because we've been in the 5 years I've been there, we've been running about an average of about 6,400 customers, but about 250 of them of those customers are in Webster County, give or take. I mean, it always bounces around a little bit. So saying we have about 61 and a half, 61,000 or 6,150 customers in Henderson is a pretty good rough number. I mean, Magistrate Sutter can expand on that. We've got farmers out there that summertime my customer base will expand some. Farmers turn on meters. Towards the fall time frame, they start shutting off the big meters and stuff like that. So, I mean, it bounces around.
It's a good point about logistics. The way that this would be assessed is per meter, per live meter. So some people have more than one, but they're paying more than one water bill for that reason.
Yeah, we have some customers that have 1 meter. We have some customers that have a dozen or more sometimes. So it just depends. Some of it's rentals. The ones that usually have multiple meters are some of your bigger farmers, things like that, or have farm locations in multiple places, especially with, you see a lot more with cattle than farming. I'm going to pick on your farm, sorry. Sutter Farms has got, they put in a big meter here about a year ago, and it's at basically a central location for you all to start filling sprayers and washing machines and stuff like that. Yes. And then you might have one or two other smaller ones in other places for, I don't know what you guys use them at the other places.
Residents.
Okay. I mean, every farmer does it a little different. So, I mean, it's always hard to tell, but you can kind of make some generalizations and stuff like that based off of, okay, I've got 20 of these guys and 15 of them do it about this way kind of thing.
But in the end, we're talking about $30 a year. That's what $2.50 would add up to. So it's not especially for a business, it's a nominal amount. And is it fair to say that your board has agreed that it's logistically you're able to do it, and that, as is the case in the city, it will not be an option for your customers if it ends up on their water bill not to pay it. It will be part of the bill.
I mean, we'll have to go through some stuff with the PSC with that to get it put in there. We'll have to have part of our tariffs and things like that changed to put that on there.
Yeah, but that's likely is what will have to happen. And so failure to pay it will it'd be the same as not paying your water bill. You know?
Yeah.
You can actually opt out on the 911 services through AT&T. I'm pretty sure.
Didn't know that.
I got
This will
nothing
not
on
be an
that one.
opt-out option. This will be a fee. Are you sure about that?
I'm not positive. But
There's nothing in KRS 65.760 that talks about opting out on that. It is a tax on that now, and that's a pretty detailed statute about that. But it may be something that AT&T itself has undertaken to go ahead and pay themselves. I've not heard of that, and I don't. That would be very unlike AT&T from every experience I've ever had with AT&T. But that's not specifically mentioned in KRS 65.760.
And I know the other thing is, and Mr. Gold brought this up at the last board meeting, if we make a change into our tariff that, hey, you have to pay it or else, or there was other options that you were talking about with, where it became, fees that had to be collected through the sheriff's department or something, were you not? Or
I don't recall that.
Okay.
So if you did leave it at 250 now, and then you raise it to 450, you're going to have to go through the same.
Well, maybe. To be honest with you, what we would probably do is in all honesty, what my envisioning of how we're going to do this, and Chris and I haven't sat down and talked about it specifically, but we would end up probably putting something in there that that hey, your bill has to be paid, including any other fees that are assessed by the county fiscal court, or however that needs to be worded legally, which at that point gives us, okay, if the fee's $2, if the fee's $5, if the fee's $25, it can go through kind of thing, because it's one that's been assessed to us kind of thing. Is the way I understand it that he and I had spoken about it. So, but again, I'm not a lawyer.
And I can venture a guess that this is a conversation many, many counties and municipalities are having right now because of the same dynamic with landline telephones. And the Garrett County case, I think, is kind of given the green light to have this discussion, and many other counties are doing it.
And Keiko's been bringing it up, and I know it's been brought up in the legislature for the 10 years I've been here.
Yeah.
There's been folks bringing up something about how to figure out how to fund this more appropriately.
And again, I want to thank you for being here today. And we will keep working with your board.
Okay.
And any other questions for Pete? He's got work to do, I know. And
I'll hang tight till the end after the meeting if you guys have questions.
any other thoughts?
I would also note for the fiscal court that the current draft, which is, again, based off that Garrett County ordinance, does have an administrative percentage to be held back by each water company that would allow them to defray their administrative cost of doing this. So it's not a pure cost to the water district. Currently, the last guidance I received on that was set at 3% for that. I don't know what that's anticipated to generate.
I don't know. I mean, because I know Garrett's is currently at 6.
Yes.
And I know Bowling Green is working with one of their water districts, and they're looking at 10 to 15% based on their costs and stuff. But it's also a far different customer count that they're working with there as well. So,
Thank you, Pete.
okay.
Thank you, Pete.
If nobody else has anything to add to the discussion, I'd like to ask for a recommendation to at least move forward on drafting an ordinance so that we can look at it, if not actually vote on it next meeting. If we would, again, as Steve mentioned, we have a bit of a timeline we'd like to adhere to as much as possible, but does everybody feel comfortable at this point either drafting a resolution or having a resolution to vote on next meeting? An ordinance change. Sorry about that.
I don't have a problem with it. I really think we ought to put the fee on the water meters. I mean, I've got no problem with that. I'd rather go ahead and bite the bullet and do the $4, but you can write it both ways. Whatever passes, passes.
Any other thoughts?
I'm not in favor of going to $4. You call it a fee if you want, but a fee is a tax. I mean, it's all, and I'm not going to raise taxes when we've got a surplus. I'm not going to do it.
Understand.
I just don't feel that, I don't feel that we should do that.
And it's not that we're making this contribution to 911 fees out of our reserve, but we have been budgeting the last 3 years well enough to have plenty of room in the budget, in the current budget, to make this subsidy. So, and we'll continue to do that.
Yes.
The goal will be to continue to do that.
Well, again, we still have the savings that's not coming
Right.
out of the general fund.
Right.
Again, initially, when we talked in the co-op meeting, 4% seemed to make sense. Just bite it, take the hit, and go on.
$4.
But when you look, to the people we serve, I know $15 a year doesn't sound like much, and that's if you went to $4 over the $2.50 landline fee. But like I think Tim makes a good point. People look at those things as taxes, and the general fund is relatively flush at this particular time. And again, our cost, or our contribution out of the general fund, continues to decline going into 2025.
I'd just like to point out, just for argument's sake, that we're raising more money than we made off the landline, so we're raising taxes. So if you vote for it, you're voting to raise taxes.
No, we're not.
Yes, you
I would
are.
argue against it. I think we are.
You're
we are
raising more revenue than you were with that. That's raising.
not because we're raising taxes, but redistributing to meet the original design of the plan to include people who, probably unwittingly, have stopped contributing to 911 and re-enrolling them basically in that program. We're not raising the rate, and we are redistributing the rates. We are redistributing the fee, so we have fair, equitable support of 911. I don't think it's a tax increase. Certainly, it's a revenue increase because we are back to reaching a 99% of the county,
You're
homeowners.
taxing more people that weren't taxed because they opted out of it went to cell phones other than that. I agree with the fee, but your arguments that we're not raising taxes, you're raising more revenue, you're raising tax more money.
So if we had a drastic population increase and that raised property tax revenue, would that be a tax increase, Mr. McCollum?
On those people that were just enrolled, yes.
It would be a tax increase.
Well, not in the number, not the percentage number on the person that's already
Right.
paying, but
It would be a revenue increase, but not a tax increase. And I say this is a similar thing, in my mind.
Let me just say something real quick, and the judge referred to it when he was in his opening remarks. I said, if you never had the opportunity to call 911, you're very blessed.
Yes.
We have. Mother had a stroke. Probably the difference in her living another 10 years or not was that phone call to 911. So if you ask me what I'd pay, I don't care whatever it is, I'd give it. But I've lived it, and I appreciate what they do. I know what, not everybody really thinks like that. But everybody, has got this service available. And everybody should share at some reasonable rate.
And I think we all agree on that. But that is part of the impetus for figuring out long-term viability as the increased costs have begun to pile on and the decreased revenue has exacerbated that. So obviously something needs to be done, and the city has moved forward with their solution. So getting back to my question, would everybody like us to draft an ordinance change and try to get that done as quickly as possible while still working as closely as you can with the water board to make sure they're in agreement? And we can if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Gold, we can postpone second reading of that ordinance if there are any differences of opinion with the board till we, in my mind, get there.
Well, any changes between first and second reading would necessitate a third reading if there were an amendment.
Right.
So
if we don't change anything, though, we can postpone a second reading to help improve communication in case their board has any changes. I know that if it leads to a change in ordinance, we have to read it again.
Right, which would obviate the need for the first reading before everything's good to go. Now, like I said, we've got a draft that's been drawn up. I've communicated that to Mr. Hopgood.
we included all the suggestions they made at the last meeting. I'm not sure there's a whole lot more beyond that. However, if some of the discussion today leads to some sort of changes there, then that's fine. I mean, like I say, the ordinance is drafted. There's two things that are variable. The first variable is the amount, and the second amount of the actual fee, and the second variable is the amount of the administrative fee. Those are the only two,
Right.
and I can take those numbers that I'd previously been given and put blanks in there right now, and we could be good to go today. And y'all can fill in the numbers you need.
Put the up to 3% in there for the fee, since that's already been approved in that case.
Well, actually, Garrett County did do 6, like he said. I'd previously been told to put 3 in there, so that's
The
what I put in
discussions
there.
with
So,
the board of the Water District, they've always included that 3% figure. And I think they were in general
We were talking
agreement about that.
And we were looking at it. I mean, I've been trying to look at the numbers, and part of it was why it's, and I never brought it up because we had talked about it internally with the board and whatnot, is trying to figure out, okay, well, what is the fee going to be? Trying to figure out roughly what the hours are going to take, how long it's going to take for us to do this kind of work month to month. And it's something that we don't normally do. So we're trying to make some estimates and things like that, but then also based on what was going to be collected so that we're not, like you said, becomes, kind of a neutral kind of thing where we're not losing money and we're not trying to make money off y'all. But if we're going with the 250, I think we're going to be probably asking something closer to the 6% ourselves, because it's to try keeping the money around what it would be 3% at the $4.
your cost of administration, whether it's a penny or $100, are going to be the same,
Yeah.
right? So you're looking
Roughly.
at trying to get that
We're trying
number that
trying
it's
to
going to
stay-
cost you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's kind of what we're looking at. Because, I mean, I've been trying to use that number to try figuring out, hey, will this cover us at this point? And it looks like it will be all right at that spot kind of thing, so.
Mr. Conrad, can we do this? Can we draft a resolution with $2.50 and 3% as the rate? Meanwhile, giving you a chance to double check that.
Mhm.
And and again, working with your board, if you want to come back with a higher rate, we can adjust.
Can they do that by next week?
Next week.
I
Maybe,
mean,
maybe not.
we won't meet by then, but I mean, I can, contact all of them by then.
It'll come out of the
Have conversations with all of them. Absolutely, I can do that.
Yeah, it's 3%, but that's figured in on this,
Okay.
I think.
Mhm. Is that okay? Is that acceptable?
Yeah, I mean, as staff, absolutely, I don't know what the board's going to say, but yeah.
And I'll work with Mr. Spainhoward to relay what we're doing here and see if he's amenable to that. And maybe if we need to, we can call. He could call a special
Yeah,
meeting
we
of your
can,
board.
we can get a special called meeting
Yeah.
for it.
Keep that open, and I'll talk to Mr. Spainhoward.
Okay.
Thank you. Is our plan acceptable?
Yes.
Yes.
So just to get it on the record, all those in favor of moving forward as I described signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Appreciate that. Next in your packet is some declaration of surplus by the detention center. And if Jailer Brady wants to come and describe any of this or talk about any of this, feel free. It's pretty normal procedure. There's a long list of these.
Do we have to read the whole list?
No.
We can read the resolution and refer to the list. If everybody would mind looking at it really quickly, and if you have any questions of Jailer Brady, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer. You can see this is all basically either obsolete or that's just broken and won't work. Any questions of Jailer Brady? If none, I'll have the clerk read the resolution, please.
A resolution declaring certain county property to be surplus and providing for the disposition thereof. Whereas the Henderson County Jailer is the owner of property that is no longer of use to the Henderson County Detention Center or by any other departments within Henderson County. Whereas the fiscal court has reviewed the list submitted by the jailer, setting forth the item's description, original purpose, and reason for disposition. Whereas pursuant to KRS 67.0802, the fiscal court finds that it is in the best interest of the county to deem the property as surplus and provide for the disposition thereof. As such, the Henderson Fiscal Court wishes to offer said personal property to be sold by public auction or by selling for scrap or disposing as garbage. And now therefore be it resolved by the Fiscal Court, County of Henderson, Kentucky as follows. Pursuant to KRS 67.0802, the personal property of the Henderson County Detention Center listed on Exhibit A, which is attached hereto, incorporated herein, is hereby declared to be surplus. If Exhibit A designates the personal property to be offered for sale at an online auction, it will be sold using a duly advertised online auction pursuant to all applicable laws at such time and in such manner as shall be arranged by the county judge executive. If Exhibit A designates the personal property to be sold as scrap or disposed of as garbage, the Henderson County jailer shall make suitable arrangements for the disposition thereof and shall forward the proceeds, if any, to the Henderson County Treasurer to be transferred to the general fund pursuant to KRS 67.0802-6.
A motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other questions?
On the question, we got a lot of garbage and scrap. I know people do recycle that to get the metals out of it. I didn't know if we could lump that stuff in and see if it's sold.
It says.
I know there's a company in Pennsylvania that does that.
Community service, they will go through and pull out the items that would regularly be disposed of and see if there's any scrap in there, and then they bring the check and the receipts back and turn those in.
Where do we sell?
It goes to a place out by, is it Riverport?
River Metals.
Yeah. That's like if they pick up stuff, sometimes they'll pick up refrigerators and things like that too. They'll do the same thing with that.
So we're not bidding on it?
Well,
If it's garbage, some of the stuff on there, I'm not sure which list that you
I'm
have.
looking at the printer, the monitors, the paper shredders, the computer.
Yeah, if it's garbage, we make sure through Brent that everything's cleared off of like the computers and things like that. And they'll post them online, and usually if they don't sell, then they'll haul them off.
Well, and one of the problems with that is that the surplus property statute has had a couple of amendments to it, and we were hoping that we put something in there about scrapping and kind of, somewhat low value type things, but they did address it, but not in a way that is particularly helpful, as is typical so often of our legislature. They have said basically that you can scrap something, but in order to do it, you need to have an independent appraisal done of the property, which costs more than the stuff is worth. So it's it's a thanks but no thanks. So when you've got anything of any sort of value, if you're going to say this has a fraction of a penny of value, if you're going to do something other than take it to the dump, which we should be trying to avoid taking things to the dump, you've got to do this process where you have to have this independent appraisal, and it's pretty ridiculous. So that becomes a real problem with things like that when we really should be looking to do those things. But the recent amendments to the statutes kind of discourage that.
So what are we going to do with these items there at the bottom?
That's, honestly, I'm not even sure why that's included on there, because if they're going to be taken to the dump, the fiscal court doesn't have to do anything. The jail just has to note that it is being disposed of, by going to the dump and take it off their property.
They can't take it to the metal scrappers out here
No.
without bids.
No.
Yeah, which is insane. But I'm
why don't we do this? Why don't we offer these items for auction? Jailer Brady.
Can you just lump them in one big lump sum and maybe we get some kind of small bid on it?
We can.
I think that's the easiest way to
We
bridge this
can,
gap.
and like the vehicles and stuff like that, we've taken, if we've had van seats that had holes punched in them, we've changed the seats out, we've taken the tires and replaced those. I mean, just, we've nickel and dimed it all to pieces, so.
And why don't you just go ahead and offer them and see what happens? And after that, if there's no offer, we can. It's
Yes,
disposable.
yes. And now the CARA 67.0802 does allow, after it's been offered for bid and there's been no bids, then there can be determinations made, what happens that make a little more sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we post them online.
So we do have a motion and a second, correct? Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Gold, your report.
Got quite a few checks today, Judge. First is a pass-through from the city for a supplement to an assistant county attorney's salary, $458.33. County attorney budget expenses, dental and life, $479.54. Health insurance, $8,737. AFLAC, $124.94. Jail fees collected, $498.86. Interest, $206.51. And that makes today's total remitted to the county $10,505.18.
Motion to accept the county attorney's report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'd like to call up Treasurer Brenda Ryder for transfers and claims.
That's probably why you took them.
There are no fund transfers. I do have claims from the road fund in the amount of $650. This is to the Henderson County Water District. This is coming from the Parks, Programs, and Supplies appropriation line. This is for a meter at the Sandy Lee Watkins Archery Building. Also from the Road Department in the amount of $7,597.64 to Field and Main Bank. This is to come from the Road Debt Service line. This is the final payment for the Greydall lease, which was purchased in 2016. From the LGEA fund in the amount of $9,064 to the City of Henderson, and this is to come from the landfill solid waste appropriation line. And what this is for is actually for the March 2019 appropriation, which was not realized until after the close of the year, that had not been made. Also from the LGEA fund in the amount of $8,354.74 to the Basket Volunteer Fire Department. This is to come from the Volunteer Fire Department appropriation line, and this is for the insurance reimbursement for that fire department for 2019-2020.
I move we pay the claims.
It's a transfers, isn't it? Or
No, these are
claims?
claims.
These are claims.
Second.
Yeah. Motion is second. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
This time, if anybody in the audience would like to speak for good of the county, you're welcome to come on up. If not, we'll go to Magistrate Southern.
All's good. We are maybe drying up a little.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Hope you didn't just jinx it.
Yeah, me too.
Magistrate Moran?
All is good in District 2. I would like to encourage everybody to come out this weekend to the county fair, which is at the fairgrounds of District 2, and enjoy Dirty Days. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Excellent. Magistrate Putman?
Thank you, Judge. All good in the fourth.
Magistrate McCollum?
All is hot in the bed. I lost 4 pounds yesterday.
Thanks. Magistrate Berry?
The rodeo was great. I went out there. I know you were there, I think, both nights. I went Saturday, and I had a lot of good comments about you being there. They thanked us for sponsoring race, and everybody said it was really crowded. I think they come out well with the rodeo. It was a good event. Got a chance to go out and drive the roads with the county supervisor, and I got a lesson. I didn't realize that our roads, they need work. And I'm glad that we're able to at least get started this year doing some paving, and hope we can continue that, because they kind of went downhill. I see that. Other than that, everything's good.
Keith, I thought that tractor ride took us all over your district. We looked all your roads already.
We went the other way, but yeah, it'd have been too rough to go that way, I think. But we're gonna work on them, so everything's good.
Mr. Gold.
All good with me, Judge.
Wow. It's the quickest round of good of the county I've seen. I do want to reiterate congratulations to the Henderson County Fair Board. They've worked really hard, and I think the rodeo event was great. The new bleachers that the county purchased made a huge difference because we had a big crowd, and they really helped everybody be comfortable. And in the past, the county fair has struggled to make ends meet, and I think they have a format now that really helps them make it sustainable, and the help that the county gives them in making sure the fairgrounds can serve the proper purpose for that fair, I think it really helps them, and that was great to see. As far as roads go, I feel your pain. It's a concern for all of us, and the good of the State of the City, State of the County address is coming up later this month, I believe July 25th, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to be talking about this. There are some things coming up in the next General Assembly session, and there are certainly going to be points of hot debate that have to do with infrastructure, and I'll be offering my thoughts on that. But I can encourage, I can promise you that that subject will be an intense focus both here at the county level and at the state level too. So hopefully help is on the way. Speaking of our road supervisor, Jeff Risley, keep him in your thoughts. He's a little under the weather, and hopefully be getting back to work soon, and keep thinking about him. I do want to thank the road department. They're going fast and furious now on Ohio Drive. That is seeing some progress, which is great. And I think the work they're doing is top-notch from what I've seen so far. So that's terrific. And the fact that we can do it in-house is saving us thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars on the whole project. So thank you, Bill. Send our regards to your crew. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion is second. All those in favor can leave.